What if the animal you call a pet isn't just there for companionship, but a divine assignment wrapped in fur? You think you rescued that cat, dog, or bird, but what if God positioned that creature in your life to intercept danger before it even reached your doorstep? Proverbs 12:10 says, "The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but few realize those animals are sometimes God's hidden agents of mercy and protection." You've overlooked the way your dog growled at that visitor who later betrayed you, or how your cat refused to leave your side the night before your mental breakdown. You thought it was instinct, but heaven knows it was intervention. Animals don't argue with divine instincts, they act. While humans question, hesitate, and rationalize, your pet senses atmospheres, discerns shifts, and sometimes warns you with a stare, a bark, or even an unusual silence. Job 12:7-10 reminds you to ask the beasts, and they will teach you. And if you're honest, your pet has already been trying to tell you something. That uneasiness your dog felt wasn't anxiety, it was discernment. That sudden illness that delayed your walk, the leash you couldn't find, the night you stayed home, all small shifts that spared you from being at the wrong place at the wrong time. God often hides his protection in what we call coincidence. But Psalm 91 says he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. And sometimes those angels walk on 4 legs. You wanted a pet, but heaven sent a watchman. You saw a cute creature. God saw a living alarm system. There are moments you can't explain, like why your pet barked at an empty hallway, stared into the darkness, or curled tightly against you the night you thought you'd fall apart. The world calls it emotional support, but the kingdom calls it prophetic alignment. You pray for protection but ignore the creature standing between you and the unseen. That's not a pet, it's a covering. And when your pet acts out of character, you call it weird, but in the spirit realm, warfare is being waged, and your animal is sensitive to it in ways your dulled senses no longer are. While you scroll your phone and ignore the shift in the room, your dog is pacing, your cat is hiding, and heaven is whispering through fur and paw. The warning you didn't hear, your pet felt. When that friend came over and your animal growled for the first time, that wasn't bad behavior, it was discernment. 1 Peter 5:8 says to be sober and vigilant, for the enemy prowls like a roaring lion, and sometimes your dog is barking at that very lion's presence cloaked in flesh. God will not always send thunder from the sky to warn you. Sometimes he'll send a whimper, a growl, or a refusal to move. Animals don't have theology, but they have obedience. They don't know scripture, but they know presence. And when the presence shifts, so do they. That's why some of the most faithful guardians of prophets and warriors in scripture were animals. Ravens fed Elijah, a donkey spoke to Balaam, lions fasted from Daniel, and a fish preserved Jonah. Don't underestimate how heaven partners with creation to protect chosen ones. You're living as if the spiritual realm only operates through human prophets. But Romans 8:19 says, all creation waits in eager expectation for the sons of God to be revealed. That includes your pet. The next time your dog stands in your path, or your cat claws at a door you were about to walk through, pause. Don't discipline the warning God is sending. Maybe that door wasn't meant to open. Maybe that call you ignored because your pet distracted you was a delay divinely designed. God will never be predictable in how he guards you. Sometimes the warning will come from a pulpit, other times from a paw. When you feel the urge to go out but your dog won't stop whining, or your cat stares at the ceiling and hisses, don't brush it off. There are angels fighting battles you cannot see, and your pet might be the only one in the room who senses it. They're not just animals, they are seers without speech. They carry the weight of intercession in movement, posture, and proximity. The moments when your pet lies beside you as if holding space for your pain, it's not just comfort, it's covenant. They are standing in the gap when your faith is too weak to pray, when your mind is too clouded to perceive, when your spirit is too weary to discern. God knows your limits, so he placed a guardian beside you who doesn't need words to intercede. Their presence is strategic, not random. That pet you found on the street, the one who showed up during your darkest season, wasn't coincidence. It was commission. You think you named them, but they were already known in heaven. And every time they sit at your feet while you cry or jump in fear moments before chaos breaks out, or wake you in the night when you're slipping into despair, they are operating in the rhythm of divine protection. Their timing is too precise to be accidental. Their attachment to you too fierce to be casual. They were sent. And if you trace back the worst days of your life, you'll find them standing near you in every storm, sometimes as the only silent witness to your collapse. But their silence is not absence, it's presence. Ecclesiastes 3:19 says humans and animals share the same breath, and in that shared breath, heaven weaves mystery. You were never meant to walk alone. And while people walked away, judged, or misunderstood, your pet stayed, not just out of loyalty, but out of divine assignment. You may have been abandoned, but God placed something beside you that would never leave until the season shifted. And the reason your healing came quietly is because someone else was holding the atmosphere steady. That someone might be wagging a tail or purring in your lap. In a world of noise, they became the sacred silence that kept your spirit from shattering. God doesn't only use preachers and prophets. He uses whatever is willing. And when your dog nudges your hand at just the right moment, or your bird sings a note that breaks your depression, or your cat lies on your chest and stills your heart rate, it's not just comfort, it's prophetic medicine. In 1 Kings 17, God used a raven to bring bread to Elijah, and you think he won't use a Labrador to stop your panic attack? You think he won't use a kitten to break that suicidal spiral? The enemy knows how deeply animals affect the soul, which is why isolation often includes separating you from them. But God's mercy chases you with paws and feathers and fur. Your pet is not a substitute for prayer. It's an extension of God's protection plan. The enemy tried to take you out, but your animal stood in the gap. They heard what your spirit was too tired to speak. They knew what your atmosphere refused to reveal. And while you cried out to heaven for help, heaven was already curled up at your feet, waiting for you to notice. You're looking for angels in white robes, but sometimes they wear collars and sleep at the foot of your bed. And now you understand why their eyes seem so deep, why their behavior feels so intentional, because they see, they sense, and they cover you. You didn't just adopt a pet, you accepted a divine assignment. So the next time disaster was avoided by a delayed walk, or a strange bark made you double-check a locked door, or a quiet stare kept you home, thank God. Because he knew you'd ignore the signs, so he gave you one that wouldn't let you. Heaven fights for you in silence, in fur, and in faithfulness. And your pet is part of that fight. Don't dismiss the divine just because it has 4 legs. God didn't. And he never will. You thought you just had a pet, but heaven knows you've been walking with a guardian this whole time. God doesn't always send thunder or prophets to protect you. Sometimes he sends paws, fur, and silent loyalty. Don't ignore the divine just because it doesn't speak your language. Open your eyes, pay attention, because that animal beside you may be the very reason you're still standing. Let this be your reminder. God's protection doesn't always look supernatural. It often looks familiar. Thanks for watching, and see you in next video.